Hello, gunfighters, and welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting and gun-related stuff the right way with God at the center. Gonna try something a little bit different. You guys are probably familiar if you've listened for any length of time. The Better Know a Cartridge episodes. They're kind of short episodes on a pretty particular topic, so I think I'm gonna forego the lengthy bio. Try to abbreviate it. First and foremost, I am a Christian. That is number one in my life, serving God, following Jesus. Combat veteran, served in the United States Marine Corps and the Army. Also law enforcement veteran, private contractor, state rifle and pistol champion. Pretty succinct. You want to support? Go to Patreon. Should be a link in the show notes. Boom. Let's get into the day's cartridge. You like obscure cartridges, you like lever actions, you like America, you like 35-ish calibers. Today's cartridge talk might be for you. The 348 Winchester is what we're talking about today, which you probably know if you clicked on it. The 348 Winchester. To give credit where credit is due, I'm going to be looking, at least primarily, at Cartridges of the World and Wikipedia. The 348 Winchester, this is from Cartridges of the World. The 348 Winchester was developed by Winchester for the Model 71 lever action rifle and introduced in 1936. No other rifle has ever been commercially available for this cartridge, and the Model 71 was discontinued in 1958. Looking under the comments, one of the more powerful rimmed cartridges available for the lever-action rifle. The 348 was possibly made obsolete by the newer 358 Winchester and more modern 88 lever-action rifle. The 348 is an excellent cartridge for any North American big game at close range. Wikipedia entry has little else to offer, but does have a little bit contradictory entry. It says, when you click on the Winchester Model 71 lever-action rifle introduced in 1935 to 1958. It'd be hard to separate the two since they were kind of designed for each other, it seems. But the Winchester Model 71 was a slightly modified version of the Browning-designed Winchester Model 1886. It was only chambered for the 348 Winchester round except for an extremely rare 45-70 government and 33 Winchester centerfire, or 33 WCF. This also contradicts it. It said there was another rifle chambered for it in the 348 in the Cimarron 1885 high wall in 2005 and 2006. Under this Wikipedia entry, the rifle and cartridge were very effective against any North American big game heavy timber, including the great bears, if using 250 grain, 16 gram bullet. It was once very popular for hunting in Canada and Alaska. Okay, let's look at some numbers here. If you want to nerd out ballistically with me. We have loadings here 150 grain at 2890. That's impressive. If you know the general rule of thumb I like to use, and it is a common loading, easy to remember, and it varies depending on load and temperature and even elevation, but a 308 is 150 at 2800. We see that mimicked here long ago in 1936 in a lever action rimmed cartridge, 150 grain at 2890. Now, I don't know that loading was ever available then, but it shows it here. If that information shows true, 150 grain at 2890, it's a different caliber. So you're going to have different sectional densities, ballistics coefficient, but those numbers are reminiscent of a 308 Winchester, which is very surprising. If we move up to a 200 grain bullet, you're still talking 2530. That's pretty respectable. And if we look at the 250 grain at 2350, still respectable. If I think of the 30-06 by God's grace I plan on taking to Alaska, and the establish street cred of that round and heavier bullets, you're talking 220 grain at rough numbers 24.50. This is right in there. It's got a 200 grain at 25.30 and a 250 grain at 23.50. So it's right there. That is, again, respectable for a rimmed lever action cartridge that came out in the Great Depression. I'm really surprised myself that I'm comparing it to the 308 and 30-06, which is pretty amazing for a cartridge of its time. And looking in the cartridges of the world, they list a Winchester factory load 200 grain soft point at 25.20. Nothing real notable there except for it is a factory load, and a 250 grain soft point factory load, unspecified maker, at 23.50. It's also pretty remarkable that Hornady loads their lever evolution round for this. If you don't know, historically when you're talking about a tube-fed magazine, usually a lever action tube feed, you are stuck in the realm of round nose or flat nose bullets, so you don't get a chain detonation in that type of magazine. However, with the Hornady lever evolution, it has a softer polymer tip that is designed to not detonate the primer of the cartridge in front of it. Pretty important. They make that for the 348 Winchester. Didn't really know that until I started looking up this cartridge, but it's pretty amazing that they make such a higher tech cartridge loading for this older cartridge. I'm on the Hornady website. It lists a velocity of 2560 with a 200 grain projectile. That's pretty respectable. I thought we were more going to compare this to the 35 Remington, a much more popular but still fairly obscure 35 caliber lever action cartridge. If we look at that, you see a 35 Remington 200 grain at 2400. Not bad, but it doesn't meet up to the 348 Winchester. If we look at a 158 grain, which we saw a 150 grain loading for the other one, above 2800, this one's nowhere close at 2200. And we see a buffalo bore loading, which is known for pushing the envelope, listed here at 220 grains at 2200. So close, but you're not really matching the 348 Winchester. Again, we see a factory loading here in the same manual cartridges of the world, 250 grain factory load at 2350 and a 200 grain at 2520. Here's some of the shortcomings of this cartridge, right? It's pretty obscure. Even compared to the 35 Remington, you're much more likely, I think, to find 35 Remington, both rifle and ammo, than a 348 Winchester. And unless you are hunting Canada or Alaska, or you just really want it, and you want a 35-ish caliber lever cartridge, why not the 35 Winchester? Here's another thing I think really holding this cartridge back, or that held it back. Or perhaps a better way to put that is that stopped it from continuing strong into the future. It uses a .348 or 8.8 millimeter bullet. That's pretty unique. That's not like most other 35 caliber bullets. Not going to be as common to find reloading projectiles as like a 35 Remington, which you can even reload with .357 diameter like common 38 Special 357 diameter bullets if you wanted to. Obviously more designed for the rifle bullets, but a much more common bore diameter, even though they're fairly close in that they're both 35-ish caliber. So I think that kind of holds it back from continuing strong in the reloading hunting world. Now, why would you perhaps want this cartridge? Well, perhaps it was handed down to you. It's a family heirloom, and I would encourage you to hunt with that and treasure that and take care of that. Perhaps you just want to hunt with a piece of history. Perhaps you want a lever gun that is powerful enough, as this, stated, to pretty much take anything. Hunt Alaska with it, hunt Canada with it. I wouldn't necessarily go hunt Africa with it. But for anything like that, if you want something in that ballistic kind of, let's say, big bore or medium bore lever action rifle, something quite a bit more stout than, let's say, your classic 30-30. You want a good intermediate range lever action rifle round. And you want to hunt with a piece of history. That 348 Winchester is a good looking cartridge. If you don't mind the obscurity, if you're going to reload for it or you don't mind spending the money on ammo, a fantastic round and quite surprising on how good it is ballistically. I guess in summation, a really capable big game cartridge with surprisingly good ballistics, especially for the era. You're talking about something rivaling the 30-06, which is kind of the standard for big game hunting that most others are compared against. And it hangs in there. It's different because it's a rimmed lever action rifle cartridge, but that might be the appeal of it, right? You want to hunt with a lever action tube fed because you like lever actions, right? And it's surprising that it hangs right in there with those numbers. It's an impressive ballistic round, especially considering the lever action rounds available at the time. Not the only one. There are some other heavy hitters, but it's pretty impressive. Anyway, with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Better Know a Cartridge Talks on the 348 Winchester. If you like this one, you may also check out the episode on 35 Remington, and depending on which one comes out first, the 405 Winchester. With that, I'll probably skip the tactical tip, but I don't want to deny you the tactical verse of the day. From Leviticus 19, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edge of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the needy and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Remember, if you're blessed with something, it's not because you deserve it, it's because God chose to give it to you. And also try and remember to be a blessing to others. You are blessed, not so that you can hoard it, but so that you can share your blessings with others. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.